So a couple days ago, Robert Meyer Burnett posted a scoop, and it's like the scoop to end all Star Wars scoops right now. He got his hands on the Colin Trevorrow Star Wars Episode 9 script, an early draft from 2016, 11 days before the death of Carrie Fisher. And it's a wild thing. It's an absolutely wild script. I've looked at a lot of the key elements that came from it, and people have been asking my opinion on it. I haven't done a video till now, but I thought we'd look at this Collider article because they break it down pretty well, and it goes to show you just how different things were. And people out there really like this, and they really like it. They're like, "Oh, why wasn't this the movie?" Changes happen, I think, is one thing we should definitely point out here. And obviously changes did happen. Colin Trevorrow left in September of 2017 due to creative differences. We know that for a fact. And this was an early draft of his. And this clearly didn't sit well with Kathleen Kennedy and the other executives at Lucasfilm. Even though it's arguably a better story, when they brought in J.J. Abrams, you can tell that they kind of backed themselves into a corner with The Last Jedi, and they needed Abrams to get him out of it, and that's what Abrams did. But this is just another thing that kind of shows you that, for one, the behind the curtain of Hollywood, there's a lot of behind the curtain in Hollywood, and two, that these are always evolving processes. So even though you like this, and we're going to go through it, but even though you may have enjoyed what this was, that's not to say this is exactly what it was going to be. Although it's one of those, man, wouldn't it be cool if that's what happened sort of things. Anyway, it says here, it was only a matter of time. While J.J. Abrams is a director and co-writer of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, we know that he wasn't the film's first director or writer. Those honors went to Colin Trevorrow, who was tapped to take the helm back in 2015. He developed the Star Wars 9 script with his frequent collaborator Derek Connolly over the next few years, but in 2017, Trevorrow departed the project due to creative differences. That's when Abrams came aboard and set about reworking the story, with the final credits going to Abrams and Chris Terrio, and Colin Trevorrow and Connolly getting the story by credit. But the story is like vastly different. So it's like, I mean, this when we have the story by, what you have to realize here is that it's WGA requirements. It's a guild requirements. So it's not like, I mean, the story here is vastly different from the story that we got. But they just had to, like, the guild required it. Anyway, so it says here that the script leak hails from YouTuber Robert Meyer Burnett, who posted the video yesterday supposedly breaking down the major story beats in Trevorrow's version, titled Star Wars Duel of the Fates, which is an awesome title, by the way. Way better than Rise of Skywalker, I will fully admit that. It had the opening crawl, the story arc for Rey, Finn, Poe, and even Rose Tico. And of course, the ending. So people have been talking about it. And this is what it says. We're just going to jump into this here. All right. The opening crawl from the script written by Trevorrow and Connolly says, "The iron grip of the First Order has spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Only a few scattered planets remain unoccupied. Traitorous acts are punishable by death. Determined to suffocate a growing unrest, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has silenced all communication between neighboring systems. Led by General Leia Organa, the Resistance has planned a secret mission to prevent their annihilation and forge a path to freedom." It's way better than "The Dead Speak." I still have trouble with the opening crawl of Rise of Skywalker. I still like the movie, but that opening crawl doesn't do it for me. Considering the fact that opening crawl tied into a Minecraft event, a Fortnite event, it just bothers me. That bothers me on just a very core level, because I understand that Disney's about synergy. I get it, but like tying that mysterious broadcast in to a goddamn Fortnite event just doesn't make any sense to me. It's just so stupid. But it's like, it's just, you almost have to ask yourself, do they just stop caring? And I kind of want to say that they did, which is not good. Now, the beginning of the film very much picks up from The Last Jedi, in that the First Order has cut off all communication between planets in order to suppress a rebellion inspired by Luke Skywalker's stand at the Battle of Crate. So the spark of the rebellion did work in this version of the movie. In fact, the opening sequence of Duel of the Fates finds Finn, Rose, and BB-8 stealing a Star Destroyer that's chock full of Imperial weapons. During the heist, Finn sees a stormtrooper with his helmet off that he recognizes, with his story arc in Duel of the Fates nicely concluding the one that began in The Force Awakens. Oh, and Rose, apparently front and center throughout the whole movie, which is a damn shame given that she's completely sidelined in The Rise of Skywalker. Well, Trevorrow was trying to pick up what came from, obviously, The Last Jedi, and I give him credit there. But still, putting Rose in more of a forward-facing position is not one that I think a lot of people really liked. This obviously was written before, like a year before the release of The Last Jedi, so there wasn't the audience reaction to Rose just yet. And I think, Kelly Marie Tran, God bless her, did the best with the material she was given, but it wasn't enough to make the character interesting. And there's a reason why not a lot of people who went to go see Rise of Skywalker were upset that Rose got only 1 minute and like 16 seconds of screen time. But I do like the idea here that Finn would like the whole stormtrooper thing was a cool concept. Why did they let that go? Why did they let that go in Rise of Skywalker? I don't get that. Why they decided to go for the whole force sensitivity angle when like they had a perfect opportunity of Jannah and all of those stormtroopers that mutinied and escaped, that they meet, that could have been inspired by, by FN 287, right? They could have been inspired by Finn and his rebellion against the First Order, and that they could have then gone out, that would have been, again, just like a line of dialogue. It would have been like totally just like a game changer. They should have done that. They really should have done that. I don't know what JJ was thinking. Now, in Trevorrow's version, Rose and Finn are on a mission to Coruscant to ignite an ancient beacon in the old Jedi Temple, which will call the galaxy to war. They get imprisoned, Rose gets interrogated by General Hux, and Finn leads an uprising of defecting stormtroopers in a ground battle in the streets of Coruscant. At the very end of the movie, Finn and Rose lead a group of Force-sensitive youth to a remote planet where Rey is waiting to train the next generation of Jedi. And yes, Broom Boy is you can just ditch Broom Boy. I'm fine with his omission. But I do kind of like that this was continuing that story. I do. As much as I criticize the story of The Last Jedi, I do appreciate that this is at least attempting to follow that path. I also like how there's a lot of FU moments to to The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. I'm torn. I can admit. As for Kylo, well, Kylo still dies in the end of Duel of the Fates, but his arc in the film, as well as Rey's, is completely different. For one, there's no Emperor Palpatine. At the beginning of the movie, Kylo Ren has vanished off to Mustafar and is wallowing around in Vader's old castle. There he's haunted by the Force ghosts of Luke Skywalker, even fights a hallucinatory version of Darth Vader, a la Luke's fight in the cave, and he comes into contact with the Sith teacher of Palpatine, Tor Valum, via an ancient Sith device as he's trying to put an end to the Jedi and Sith once and for all. But he's bad in this version of the story. He's gone full Heisenberg, so to speak. And I think that would have been cool. Again, I liked the Ben Solo redemption arc. I fully admit I enjoyed the Ben Solo redemption arc. And it kind of felt like it needed to happen in some ways. And obviously, JJ was trying to appeal to the Reylos. I get that. He was trying to appeal to all fan bases, but I still enjoyed that moment. But Adam Driver is such an excellent, intense actor that allowing him to go full Heisenberg, allowing him to go full Vader, to go full bad, would have been interesting in a way that was unlike The Force Awakens, where he was kind of like a petulant child, where he was impatient and very, here, none of that would have mattered. Here, he just would have been like, he would have been like full accepting. He wouldn't have had any kind of conflicting emotions behind the mask. And that would have been fascinating to see. Now, Rey, meanwhile, still believes there's good in Kylo and has teamed up with Poe to put an end to the Jedi Sith in her own way. Another story point picks up from the ending of The Last Jedi. Now, Rey's parents, still nobodies, but Kylo Ren killed them at the behest of Snoke, which doesn't make any sense to me because Rey and Kylo are like less than a decade apart. So that makes no sense. That would have been changed 100%. Like, it's a cool idea, but it's like, but Kylo's, no, they're like, no, no, it wouldn't work. And now the finale of the movie finds Rey and Kylo Ren duking it out on the mystical planet Mortis, with Rey getting an assist from Force ghosts of Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. The Jedi try unsuccessfully to bring Kylo back to the light, but he's gone too far, and in the end, he is extinguished on Mortis. So, that would have been cool, but the World Between Worlds, the whole arc from the Clone Wars would have been great. And it shows you that there was clearly an influence from Filoni into this, by the way. We all talk about Filoni because we know Filoni is GOAT when it comes to Star Wars Legacy. They wanted to bring some of that in. The fact that The Mandalorian is now pulling from that is so good. But going to Mortis would have been fascinating. Would have been very fascinating, which means the dagger would have probably come into play. And that might be where they got the idea for the dagger that showed up, Ochi's dagger that popped up in The Rise of Skywalker. And as much as I like the movie, it's like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I can defend practically everything in that movie outside of the monkeys, right? And The Rise of Skywalker is the same way. I can defend so much about that movie, except the dagger. It's a cool concept. It just makes no damn sense. It is such a wasted MacGuffin in that movie. It really is. Like, I've seen the movie 3 times now, and every time it gets to the scene with the dagger and she pulls out the protractor and figures it out Goonie style, I just roll my eyes and go, okay, let's move on. I didn't like that scene. I just felt like, it really started grating on me my 3rd time watching it because it just makes no logical sense. And I understand this is Space Wizards, so I get that, but still just from like okay, so this piece of the Death Star crashed on this planet. Rey knew exactly where to stand. She was in the exact right spot, and she knew where inside it was going to go. You can't even see. Like, it was dumb. It was meant to be a cool adventure thing, but it fell down. Now it says, this is honestly what many felt the crux of episode 9 should have been, the battle for Kylo Ren's soul. Instead, Abrams and company decided to muddle everything up with that Palpatine nonsense, which is just unnecessary added external conflict that detracts from the emotional thrust of his trilogy. I disagree. And I disagree based upon this argument. Kylo Ren, as we know, was conflicted. Going back to Force Awakens, Kylo was absolutely conflicted. He was torn between his anger at his family, but his also desire to kind of be with them. He was played for like a fiddle, played for a fool under Palpatine, under Snoke, all that stuff. And that kind of, I think, put him on the path to redemption. And look, I don't give a crap what anyone says. That scene with Han Solo, man, that was I love that scene in Rise of Skywalker. I love that scene. So for me, it's like I'm fine with that. I enjoyed that it was all, the plan by Palpatine. I get it. I like that aspect of it. The fact that it tied a bit into the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, giving us that intel, was a cool throwback to Lucas. I like that quite a bit. I do like this here too, but I kind of like the Palpatine thing better. I will fully admit. Now, finishing up here, it says, I'm very curious to know what exactly Kathleen Kennedy and the folks at Lucasfilm took issue with in Trevorrow's story and why they ultimately parted ways. Perhaps we'll never know, but it's fascinating to hear how one version of Trevorrow and Connolly's script panned out. It's certainly better than the constant pulling of punches and the lazy fan service in The Rise of Skywalker. And I do disagree with that. I think it needed fan service. There's nothing wrong with fan service. Fan service, in essence, is just like, if you write a sequel, you're in the business of fan service. Like, there's always going to have to be callbacks. People are always going to want that. It's like watching the Netflix Daredevil show, right? And then going and watching Luke Cage and Iron Fist and Jessica Jones. And there's always a moment where they're like, I need a lawyer. And you're like, but there's a lawyer. You can go, you can do it. And then finally in Defenders, they do it. And it's like, yeah, it's like fan service. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it, provided it's done in a way that doesn't feel like it's too heavy-handed. And there are elements, perhaps, in The Rise of Skywalker that might be a bit too heavy-handed, but I also don't care. I enjoyed the fan service. Now, this story itself, to me, seems pretty cool. This is a story I would have liked to have seen. I would like to know more details about Mortis and how they got there and the world between worlds and what the ultimate goal was. And there's a part here where it doesn't mention where Kylo gets blasted in the face with the Sith artifact and they use smelted Mandalorian armor, so Beskar steel, in order to kind of reconnect his face, which is pretty cool. And they would have made him this disfigured bad guy, but you can't sell toys like that, by the way. And they want to sell toys. There's a lot of merchandise here. Putting and having his face be all sorts of torn up is not necessarily going to sell the most in regards to the merch. Him in the helmet, him out without the helmet. Those are about your only options. Him with the helmet, him without the helmet, those are really about your only options. So there's a lot that went into this. Remember, we're talking about synergistically here and the marketing and everything else that they've done. There's a lot that went into it. Like Babu Frick was an addition for this movie. for Rise of Skywalker that wasn't in Trevorrow's script. Babu Frick gonna sell toys. Like there's a lot of that's there, and I understand people out there are going to be complaining about that, but this is not uncommon. This is not an uncommon thing. I think now people have a better and greater understanding of how the movie industry works. And sometimes they're happy with it, sometimes they're not happy with it. It is what it is. My personal take on it is the movie it's hit $1 billion. The saga is complete. We can go to the TV shows. Those are going to be good. Whatever they come up with next should be a lot of fun. And we can move past this. And if you don't like the sequel trilogy, you can stop with the OT. If you like all 3 trilogies, you got all 3. If you just like the prequels, which would be weird, but okay, you can stick with that. It's never going to go away in that regard. You're never going to be having things taken away from you that you like, and you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go, which is good. So at the end of the day, I'm happy to know this information. I would like to read the script, and I'd like to know why he ultimately left. And that kind of also throws a couple things into the mix as well. Because real quick at the end there's a line Trevorrow had said after he had left the project, like his first interview on it, where he had talked about telling his story to George Lucas and Luke Skywalker. He didn't say Mark Hamill. He says Luke Skywalker. So here, if Luke was going to be tormenting Kylo Ren through the Force Ghost, it's not necessarily probably the thing he wanted Mark Hamill to do. So it really makes me, because remember, this draft is written 11 days before Carrie Fisher died, is when it was dated. So at this point in time, it is what it is. And I'm wondering if what they were working on post that, right? That I want to read the draft that came out after she passed away, when they realized we don't have Leia to fall back on, we don't have Carrie to fall back on. And I want to know if he was working on a story where they didn't kill off Luke Skywalker. Kept the same thing, right? Kept the same thing, but they didn't kill off Luke. And I think that is what might have caused the division, because it's like maybe he's like, no, we should do this. This is like a fan thing, having him just be a Force ghost. We don't have Leia. Let's make him Luke. Go from there. That would have been something that's fascinating. But at the end of the day, this is just, it's not canon. It's just a draft. It's real and it sounds cool, but it's not what we got. But I'm curious to know your thoughts and your opinions on it. What do you think? Do you think it's a good, something you would have preferred to have seen? You think it's something that you're fine with it being where it's at? Let me know, and I will talk to you guys all later. If you made it this far, go ahead and type Kylo into the comment box so I know you made it. And have yourself a great day, guys, and peace out.